I'm Ed Rabyd, otherwise known as the Rabyd Atheist, a former pastor turned atheist, now a compassionate anti-theist. Welcome to my channel. Feel free to like or dislike the video as you see fit. So feel free to hit those buttons. Feel free to comment below, and I would appreciate it if you would hit the subscribe button and your notification bell for more content as it is released. You're also free to share my videos as much as you'd like. The purpose of this channel is educational in regards to atheism and deconversion issues, in particular Bible, theology, politics, and the occasional thoughts into other areas in relationship to those issues. Today's a Friday video. It's where I respond to comments. The last 2 weeks have been really a lot of comments, but this week is a little bit down a little bit, comparatively speaking. Though I do have to make note of a couple of conversations, although I responded to those people in those conversations, so I don't really need to do a Friday video for that. But I am going to talk about some of the content of those conversations in relationship to what it means to get out of your echo chamber. But I want to deal with a few other comments first and save those two conversations for last. Cliff A. I lost my faith in Christianity when I read Swedenborg. I've heard of Swedenborg. I have not yet read him or her. I can't remember. It's hard to say. You hear names and you just don't know what it is. But you can. The thing about Christianity, and it's actually quite easy to lose faith in if you really think about it, because the message of Christianity is a little bit weird when you really get down to it. But also, Christianity doesn't have a good track record when dealing with the rest of humanity in large respect. They have a tendency to take over and do a lot of other things. But I'll definitely keep the name in mind in case I decide that I want to look it up for later. Dither Genev, you will know the truth, and truth will set you free from the spirit of religion. And it will happen to all men that there will be no more gods. Greetings from France. Well, thank you for the greeting from France. I'm beginning to get curious as to how many different nations are represented in watching my videos. I'm up to 89 subscribers, and so I'm sure I know I have the UK, I have some Australians, and now a French watcher. Thanks for the comments. I appreciate you taking the time to watch a old ex-former preacher try to convince some people that maybe religion is not the best way to do things. Free Grits. Now that is a Southern name if I ever heard one. I didn't watch the video, and he's talking about how do you make good people do evil things, religion, last week's Friday video. You categorize evil things. That's how. I don't know. I was listening to a discussion about this earlier. I think it was either yesterday or today, where I think it was Vice Rhino was making the point that most atheists use evil and good as adjectives. We don't really consider them, there isn't an ultimate evil or there isn't an ultimate good thing being or whatever. We use them to describe actions in particular. If something does harm, it leads to a lack of well-being or even death, we would categorize that as evil, or, if it's good, then it improves well-being, it causes people to live and have more prosperous lives, so on and so forth. That's pretty generalized, but that's the kind of thing when we talk about good and evil, but we're talking about the nature of action at that point, and whether we're going to classify an action or a thing that exists as evil or good. Whereas religious people tend to personify evil and good. They tend to make them ultimate, and that there's this standard of what evil, and they're nouns to Christians and to people. Now, as far as categorization, everybody categorizes. Human beings categorize by nature. We put things in the categories. We call things, it's part of, I think, our survival mechanism that, finds patterns, and based on those patterns, we learn how to survive. So there is that aspect of it. So I guess, I'm not going to say that good and evil are absolutes, but I think when you begin to look at ethics and morals, most of it is subjective anyway, but at the same time, there's a lot of subjectivity that agrees with each other, so maybe you can come up with an objective answer. I think that's why a lot of people, universally murder is condemned. Universally rape is condemned. Well, except for people that want to justify it. But I think you're going to find that we as human beings like to categorize things and define things, and it only gets really murky when we don't. So, that's kind of one of those things that we need to address. Keen on my personal worth ethic video, moving from religious duty to self-love. Thank you for the video and taking time to answer the question. As always, with a heartfelt and honest commentary. This is still something I'm struggling with because it comes down to, as you mentioned, selfishness and the pervasive guilt of religion. The stick religion uses is fear of damnation, but it also uses a healthy dose of guilt to make you comply. The added comments regarding prosperity preachers were also appreciated. It was always a bit of a puzzle to me why people preaching against money and riches wanted you to give them the money and riches. The only answer I ever received was what these people were closer to God and so knew better or had the right to have more money than I did. It reminds me of what L. Ron Hubbard supposedly said, I'd start a religion because that's where the money is, and so that's what he did. I guess what is worse than giving all your money away to these folks is what you mentioned, how time and what we really lose. And that is way more precious than money. Yeah, I think you make some very wonderful points. Thank you. I wanted to make sure I took the time to answer that question. And I think part of my response was I started to type an answer to that original question. I realized it was going to be a very long response. I said, this is a good subject for Rabyd rambling. So let's talk about work ethic in relationship to deconversion. But yeah, the whole thing just, it's a deconversion issue because I've had to change my motivation for why I exist and work, and it's gotten very selfish. In some regards, and a lot of people, that's wrong. No, I don't think so. If I'm taking care of me, then nobody else has to really take care of me. Okay, now there are certain needs I can't meet on my own, like social needs, companionship. You have to have another person for that. But there's a lot of needs that you can meet yourself, you can take care of yourself, and then you're not a burden to others. King of the Dots, in response to my Jehovah's Witness letter series, they must be given priority mail to an atheist, you lucky dog. No, I don't know if I'm lucky, and I haven't received anything since, so we'll see. Let's see. Jasmine Gonzalez, on my reaction to the letter received from the Jehovah's Witnesses, Part 1. Honestly, the thought of living forever scared me. Yes, it does. It absolutely is terrifying. The idea of, at some point, what else are you going to experience? What else are you going to do? There comes a point, where embracing sweet oblivion is not a bad thing. Now, I'm not advocating for suicide here. I think you should fight that with everything you got. But and we could have a debate on assisted suicide, I suppose, whether that's ethical or not. But what I mean when I say, if I was allowed to live forever, if I had some means of continuing to get rid of aging, then yeah, I think that would be terrifying to me, because at a certain point I would get bored with everything. I've done everything, if you're in heaven forever and you're allowed to do whatever you want, eventually, sex gets old, money is irrelevant. What are you going to pursue? At what point, do you have any of this stuff? And I just don't think living forever is really all that great a deal. Turk Powers, ex-preacher here as well. I took the DS route as well. I held it for about a year, then I began to see what I was thinking was nothing more than atheism with an extra step. Yeah, that's the conclusion I kind of drew. That was from my time as a deist and why I'm not one anymore. Margarita M. Casella, why a brilliant mind is yours? Sounds so complicated about something so simple. Your own self is showing that there is a creator, God, Yahweh. God love you. It's easy to love him back. With God, everything is possible, and peace of mind will be abundant. And about the Son of God, he loves you too. Make him your friend. Okay, Margarita, you're being nice, and so I'm going to try to be nice back. But I've heard that before. As far as the whole, look at yourselves, look at the trees, look at you see design, I see chaos. Okay, I see something that evolved to fit its environment. Okay, and that is well documented. But I'm going to get to that in a moment when I talk about two conversations I had at the end of this particular video. Freebird of Reason, one day ago. We can claim that there are no gods, but not no God. We can say Christian God doesn't exist from the fact of the Bible. It comes out flawed against reality. We can't say there is no God, but if there is one, why call it God? What is God? Maybe the Big Bang is just another beginning or end of something else. Not know is truth. Faith is so random. We believe so many things just not related to religion. We're in a world of so many conspiracies. Take some form of religion, some flat earth. We try to pull what we hear and see out of our minds, but the reality of nature is so cruel, and evolution is the only moral way to explain it. I don't think there is any more shame, at least the one going to burn. Life is good now. Religion took me from the darkest times toward the end. Good chat, and as usual, thought-provoking. It's funny that people pull out design. Intelligent design proponents, I often look at them and said, yeah, there's some pretty shitty things in the world that had to have been designed too. If you're going to take intelligent design, you're going to look at the intricacies of something. See, that proves design. Well, let's take a look at the intricacy of some shit that literally just rots and kills things. There's literally certain, diseases, fungi that if it gets in your body, it will just straight up kill you for no reason whatsoever. And I think that's the real problem I have with intelligent design, other than the fact that they've actually gone to court and lost. But also, this brings up a lot of other issues, but I'm going to get to that in a minute. Work ethic, moving from religious duty. Freebird says, as usual in the chat, good response. Great to see the subs keep going up, keep smiling. Yeah, I'm up to 89. I got to about 85 and it slowed down quite a bit, but it was nice to get about 25 subs in a pretty short amount of time. So thank you, everybody that's recently subscribed. Week 55, how do you make good people do evil things? Religion. I watched the video. It may be the only way to answer the question. He who spares a rod hates his son, Proverbs 13:24. A good person will beat his children with a rod because of religion. Cruel, agreeing with this, is good people doing evil things. How many times has the rod been down on a child because of this verse? There will be a lot of pain in that number. Keep smiling. It's illegal now in some countries, unfortunately not all. I really look at sometimes at some of the things that the Bible admonishes when it comes to these sort of things, and it begins to concern me at times what is justified in the name of religion, and it gets really interesting. I have to deal with two conversations, and normally I wouldn't respond to comments that I have already responded to in the comments because, I've given them the answer. But I think both of these conversations had something very similar. But there's two basic issues that one commenter brought up. What it boils down to is you want to be your own God. And then the other commenter kind of, went the route of, you're being an idiot because you don't believe in design. I want to deal with both those issues because they come up frequently. First of all, I don't want to be my own God. I don't know how you get the logic of going from I don't believe in God, so therefore I want to be my own. Maybe that's some people, and maybe a lot of people have tongue-in-cheek. I think Sir Sick, for instance, is an interesting YouTuber because he uses that as a stick, that he wants, he doesn't agree with humans. He just wants to be, worshipped and given whiskey. And I can appreciate the humor of that. I'm sure a lot of Christians go to his channel and think he's being really an asshole, but I appreciate that kind of break from reality from time to time. But at the same time, I don't want to be my own God. I don't know where that comes from. And quite frankly, it's an ad hominem attack. It's an attack on my person that, the original comment, for those of you out there in Christian land that want to come here and criticize my atheism, would you please stop assuming what my motivations were, who I am, and what I am? Do you realize that your viewpoint has caused you to see lesser people that don't agree with you? You look at them as less than human beings. I would say that's pretty evil. That particular commenter, we got into a discussion of the Bible, and he wanted to deflect the conversation to abortion as if atheism alone is responsible for abortion. And you need to realize there are plenty of people that believe in gods and whatever, plenty of Christians that believe in abortion. So I don't know what you're driving at. Also, atheism only really deals with one thing. We don't believe the evidence is sufficient, or we don't believe straight up that there is a God. And so it's up to you to present evidence to change our minds. And so far, coming in here and basically accusing me of just wanting to be my own God and laying down a bunch of stuff, no. The other comment dealt with intelligent design, and you saw a few other comments along that line. A couple of things about intelligent design. Number one, I believe it was in 2006, it was defeated in court because when you lay down the evidence, because intelligent design presented their case because they wanted to be taught in school. And they presented their case, and then the people that opposed intelligent design literally at times threw a stack of 200, 300 scientific journal papers in front of them. Now, I want to talk about how you need to get, if you're a theist, if you really want to start answering atheists and other people's questions, coming on here and saying they're stupid or they're motivated by their own greed or whatever is just not very wise. Allow me to, I don't know where the verse is found, but I do know that somewhere in the New Testament there's a verse that reads something like this: use wisdom when dealing with unbelievers. For those of you that come on to atheist channels and just call them names and do that, that's not using wisdom. You're disobeying your own Bible, to be blunt. And I think you need to fix that, okay? Calling somebody foolish or, whatever. I don't need to believe that things are designed for them to be here, okay? I don't believe that for a second. A little bit, part of the end of my testimony I have to really get out there is this, that in my time of when I left being a Christian to the time that I left the ministry, I spent a good chunk of time in school learning a bunch of things, but I also read on my own, especially during the summer. And I got out of my echo chamber. I actually went and listened to proponents of the various things that I had posed actually make their own arguments instead of straw manning all the time. I started to steel man their positions, and I began to steel man my own and found that no matter what I did, the other arguments were always better. And quite frankly, the data was better, the science was better. What is really pathetic these days is people come up to me and say, well, it's obvious that God exists because it's designed. And I'd like to point out that intelligent design didn't have enough evidence to win a court case, to even get it taught in schools. That's how bad it is. And the other theory of evolution, was able to present evidence for its case and compare the two, and it's legions apart. When creationists or whoever decides to write a paper that says we have to have some sort of supernatural thing, to get past this problem and can demonstrate it and prove it, then you'd have a case. Until then, you don't have a case. I challenge any theist out there to get off your doofus and go away from your popular creationist websites and go look up stuff from the enemy as you perceive them. Not what you think, but listen to what they actually say. Okay, I don't believe in intelligent design because it's not necessary. Occam's razor makes it unnecessary. That's why I left being a deist. It's an extra step that's unnecessary. You eliminate the extra step, it still makes sense. Because if you're a deist and you don't believe in any of the religions, that means you must believe that God used evolution or the Big Bang to create the universe. Well, we can understand how all that works without a God required, so why would we need one? The answer is we don't. And that's the problem I think theists are having. People ask me why Christianity in the Western world and other religions is declining. It's because every time somebody says, well, that's designed, there's no way that could have evolved. It's irreducibly complex. Somebody writes a paper and proves them wrong. And the amount of evidence, the amount of papers, the amount of stuff that is now backing, particularly the theory of evolution, is legion. It's just massive. And for people to sit there and say, oh, it's all evolutionism and a grand conspiracy. Yes, millions of scientists around the world are involved in a conspiracy. I'm sure eventually one of them would leak that. It's not a conspiracy. It's facts. It's data. And you have to challenge that data if you're going to prove intelligent design or something else, because you don't need it. Get out of your echo chamber. Go actually, if you say, well, there's no way, one example from the conversation was, there's no way the heart could have evolved. It took me 3 minutes to go to YouTube and find a PBS video that shows the animation of what scientists have discovered by studying the various fossil records and the other things of how the heart could have developed. And that includes a bunch of tests. I'm not trying to be rude, but it took me 5 minutes to find. And so when people say, oh, atheists can't answer these questions, I laugh, because I can literally Google search and say 11, top 11 questions atheists can't answer from what's her face. I can't even remember right now. And you will literally find 25 responses from atheists who answer the questions. Even Prophet of Zod went so far as to rephrase the questions so that they actually were germane and actually talked about the issue at hand. It was funny. I am so sick of people who assume things about atheists and don't do their homework. It is not that hard anymore. When I want to talk about, Occam's razor or some other thing I see in theology that's bad, it takes me 10 minutes to do, the basic preliminary research just to review. Why is it so hard to get out of your echo chamber for a bit and go look at what your opponent is really saying, not what you think they're saying? Get out there, steel man their position, and then you'll impress me if you're still a theist. I would be very impressed with that. And, I'm sorry. It's just, to me, I engage these comments because normally a discussion on deism would be a very entertaining thing. I welcome deists. If you've discarded religion, you're welcome here. But don't think I'm going to give you a free pass on the intelligent design thing when the evidence for that is pretty scanty. And there really hasn't been a lot of papers, in fact, hardly any, written on the subject of this being a possibility. You really have to do your homework. Get out of your echo chamber. Go listen to the people you're against. Stop shouting at them. Stop calling them names for 5 seconds and just go listen. Learn to listen. I learned to listen. I learned to humble myself a little bit. I learned to listen to the facts and the evidence. And in the end, I discarded it all, because when you really look at supernatural claims, they really are bankrupt of evidence. And that's just the truth. I want to thank you for stopping by. This has been a Friday video answering questions for the week, and I hopefully clarified a few things as well. I appreciate everybody who has subscribed and watches this channel. And thank you for being around. And hopefully someday I convince you to be a rabid atheist like myself. In the meantime, this is Ed Rabyd, also known as the Rabid Atheist, signing off and wishing you a good day.